As long as you are convinced you have never done anything, you can never do anything. Malcolm X. Welcome to the We Don't Believe You podcast series. Our mission is to neutralize and dispel the false narratives, negative images, and disparaging stereotypes that have been perpetuated about Black people through various media outlets for centuries. Each week, we will highlight stories of Black excellence, greatness, and success of the past, present, and future, all of which share one common trait. They chose not to believe the negative images or stereotypes that said they couldn't succeed, but instead achieved massive success in spite of them. And now, here's your host, Brian McCoy.
Peace, and welcome to the We Don't Believe You podcast series. For centuries, Black people have been shown in a negative light via the suppression of true Black and African history by the American education systems, and also by the propagation of negative images, propaganda, and stereotypes by various media outlets. The mission of We Don't Believe You is to dispel these false negative narratives by highlighting and shining a light and promoting positive images of Black people who chose not to believe these false narratives and images, but instead chose to succeed in spite of them. Our next guest is a shining example of this. He holds a bachelor's degree with honors in criminal justice from North Carolina A&T University, which is an HBCU in Greensboro, North Carolina. He's a retiree of the United States Army, a member of the Alpha Phi Sigma Criminal Justice Honor Society, and a Youth and College Division Committee Coordinator for the NAACP, and is currently working on receiving his Master's of Arts degree in school psychology. Please welcome Mr. Patrick Price.
It's good to be here. Good to be here.
Very good. Thank you. I appreciate you being here, and good to see you. Really good to see you.
Good to be here. So my program, it's a dual degree also. So it's a Master's of Arts, also a specialist in school psychology program as well. So when I graduate, I'll receive both of those degrees. Okay.
So in other words, you're saying I left up north. Saying I left off a major part of your intro.
I guess it's just very critical. And also, it's like a step up, actually above a master's and below a doctorate as well. So,
okay. So that was a really important part that I left out.
Yes, sir.
All right. So just to, I guess, go from the best place to start is at the beginning. So you and I, we met online, actually, a couple of years back in an LSAT prep group. This was a few years ago when we were both trying to get into law school. So, in the spirit of starting from the beginning, tell us about life for you growing up.
Yeah, so I'm from Greensboro, North Carolina. I guess I didn't have many resources, much support. I got into sports pretty early. I played football, basketball. And then towards high school, really, prior to graduating, I sort of got into my academics pretty hard in preparation to actually go to college. I was considered going to college prior to joining the military, and then it was my first semester in my senior year where I made the decision to go to the military. I weighed my options, the benefits, and I guess just the good things and the bad things about going to the military first or going to college. And based on my assessment, as a senior in high school, I made the decision to go to the military first. So that's what I did.
So what actually influenced it in your weighing the pros and the cons and everything? What actually influenced the decision? What made you push the button and say, yeah, this is the best thing for me?
Yeah. So the support, Brian. So I knew that if I went to the military, I knew that my college would be paid for in its entirety. I knew that I would receive the discipline. That was a big portion, a big influence that I had. It was the discipline that I knew would be instilled into me to be able to be successful in college. I knew that I would be able to care for myself financially, right? So I knew that I would have the tools I needed to be able to support myself. And I actually intended to get my driver's license as well. So I just saw it as a really big stepping stone to really start my life. And then from there, I was going to look at other options. And so going to college was that option following my time in the military.
So basically, was it your plan that I would go to the military and then as soon as I'm out, I'm going to go to college? Or did life just kind of carry you in that direction?
Yeah, so it's very interesting. Initially, I actually intended to go to college following my time in the military. Oftentimes that doesn't happen. Oftentimes people re-enlist, they stay a little bit longer. But I saw a little bit more for myself. Your education is paid for in the military in addition to being outside of the military, post-active duty. But what you can do is very restricted. It's very limited due to the obligations that you have in the military. So you deploy a lot. You also have to take online classes, and those classes can be like so many credit hours, things of that nature. So I knew that if I got out of the military, I would have unlimited options in the context of what I wanted to study. And I knew I wanted to study like social work, essentially, like just dealing with other people. I just didn't know exactly what service I would provide in that context, which eventually led me to school psychology.
Okay. So I know that at least as long as I've been alive, the military got a really bad rap with black people. I remember in Boys in the Hood, I don't know if you remember the movie Boys in the Hood, but Furious Styles told Trey, the black man ain't got no place in the white man's army. So, but you hear that all the time. Mm-hmm. With that being the case, what were your thoughts as far as that was concerned about being black in the military?
Yeah, well, I just made the most of my experience, essentially. We all experience various levels of, I guess, adversity, but my focus necessarily wasn't on the adversity itself, but how could I learn from those experiences? I guess so. A big thing that I done is I exercised a lot from the things that I experienced. I also channeled my motivation into school and academics. So I did take some classes in college, being stateside and being deployed, although it was restricted. But it's not necessarily exactly what happens to you or what type of things, like adverse things that occurs. It's about how you respond to them to grow and make yourself a better person, if that makes sense.
So in other words, being black in the military wasn't even anything you were thinking about. Like you weren't even thinking about it in that context. Like I shouldn't go, like as a black man, I shouldn't go fight for a country that won't fight for me. Like that type of thing. You never really had that mentality. You envisioned your future and move forward.
Absolutely. I was very young, man, when I started to, I guess, just assess my future and try to prepare myself for the best. So I was about 16 or 17, with the mentality of preparing myself for family, right? So I knew that it would be challenging, right? The military is challenging. It's not easy. But I didn't have any type of perceptions or thoughts about the military, despite knowing that it would be challenging, that influenced my decision to go. A really big thing, Brian, about going to the military in the context of going to law school, context of going to graduate school, college, anything, it's about finding your people, finding your tribe, and finding this, which essentially is your support system to be able to succeed. So how you and I met was in the group for black law school applicants to be able to go to law school. And that's essentially what I did in the military. I connected with a few friends where we were able to just work collaboratively to get things done. And that support system is what I have from the time that I entered the military into the time I got out. But it's just critical that you're able to find that support system in the military.
All right. So talk about your experiences in the military, good and bad.
Okay, great. So I remember One of the most challenging times I had was during my first deployment. It was actually prior to my first deployment. I didn't know what to expect. I was, 18 years old. I was stationed at Fort Riley, Kansas, 1st Infantry Division, and we were set to go to the Middle East. Being naive and, just inexperienced, I didn't know what to expect. And then I went, and it was a time of growth. That was when I took my first few college classes, but it was just challenging being away from my family. For anyone that's interested in joining the military, that's the biggest thing I would mention in the context of things that are adverse is just being away from family. You're going to spend a lot of time away from family. You're going to spend a lot of time deployed based on where you are. And so it can be challenging at times because you're gone during holidays, during Christmases, during Thanksgivings, 4th of July, birthdays, anniversaries, the whole nine. So that part could be very challenging. Another big thing in the context of being away that many people don't speak about is just the essence of being away while you're in garrison, which means stateside. At Fort Riley, for example, where I was stationed in Fort Riley, Kansas, we spent a lot of time in the field on what we call FTXs. And those are field training exercises where you spend weeks on in essentially like the wilderness or the woods, like in your training, your complete training exercise. Now, it can range from about a week to about 3 to 4 weeks. Now, when you factor that into the time you have with your family, that's essentially the same as being deployed because you're away from your family and you don't get to spend time with them. One of the best times that I had in the military was actually during basic training when I first went. Going through the obstacle courses really, I honestly, I think that attests to some of the things that I've accomplished today. It helped me become the man that I am because you're going to have to challenge yourself. That's something that I never did in that context. You're going to be very high in the air doing obstacle courses, things that you're going to be scared, right? But having to do them and overcoming them, I think it will give you a sense of confidence and just a sense that you can accomplish anything if you put your mind to it. And along those lines, another really great opportunity that was challenging as well was during my second deployment to South Korea, where I was, I think it was a Camp Hovey. We call it Camp Hovey. And we had a swimming training. Hey, bro, I can't swim. I cannot swim. Never been able to swim. But you don't have an option but to swim, right, in this training. And you're going to be in the deepest water. I think it's like 12 feet. You're going to have to get in there, right? And you're not just going to have to swim in it. You're going to have to go to the bottom. Yeah, so it's so the training that we did, it was I think it was a flick. A flick is sort of like a vest where we carry equipment on, and then that flick would be thrown into the pool. You had to swim down to get it and then come back up. And so, not being able to know how to swim and still doing that certainly gave me a lot of confidence. Let me see.
So in other words, the military pushed you mentally and physically in ways that you don't know if you would have been pushed had you not gone.
Absolutely. You're gonna be you're gonna test your limits, and you're gonna be shown. Well, you're gonna demonstrate things in which you didn't know that you could do, if that makes sense. And
yeah, no,
number of different ways.
Definitely makes sense. So, so overall, if you could sum it up, what do you think you gained from your experience in the military?
I tell people I think I became a man, because I didn't have a father. I didn't have a father figure. The environment where I come from, is very consistent with a lot of young men today. You're demonstrated or shown examples of what not to do, right? So you know what not to do, but you don't necessarily know ways in which how to be a man and things to do, correctly. And I think my time in the military helped instill things into me that are critical, in being a man, such as being confident, leading by example, not just saying you're going to do something or saying these things, but providing the demonstration of how to do particular things. And then another one that I actually intended to get into is just having the courage to start. Okay. That's one big thing that I want to share, with the audience is oftentimes you're not going to know the destination. You're not going to know how you're going to do something, but you just got to have the courage to start it, and you're going to find your way. And there's also an analogy that I use how I guess conceptualize that as well. And that would be, just driving a far distance. I live in North Carolina. Let's just, theoretically say I'm driving to California. You don't know your way. You don't know necessarily how to get there. You're not using directions, but the military has taught me how to start that. Start it, and eventually you'll see how to take a highway, which will take you towards that route. And then as you get closer, it's going to say, California in 50 miles or whatnot. And then you'll take that route, and eventually you'll find your way. You just simply have to have the courage to start. And then from there, you'll get to your destination.
Yeah, that's like that quote. I might be mixing two quotes together, but it's kind of like start where you are with what you have. And as you move forward, new tools will be presented to you along the way.
Absolutely not. I've seen something recently where it says start scared, start broke with no money, start nervous, start with no resources, start with no support. Just start, and then as you go, you'll see these pieces, and essentially, that's exactly what I've done. Here I am, about to become a psychologist with little to no support, man.
Yeah, and that's crazy. I mean, we could do this all day, but yeah, that's the go as far as you can see. Yeah. And then when you get there, you'll be able to see even farther.
Absolutely.
But I don't want to keep trading quotes because we definitely could. Right. So in that experience, in your experience in the military, what would you say? So you just said what you gained. What do you think you lost?
Man, I lost a lot of friendships, from where I stayed, my hometown prior to leaving, because I don't have the relationships with them anymore. I'm not able to spend time with them or, just hang out like I used to. But, that's a part of being an adult. Another thing, let's see. I sacrificed a lot of time, man. That's a big one that I used to consider, but I don't consider it anymore. But a lot of the people that I went to high school with, they've graduated, went off to college, they've graduated college, and they're in their career fields. I had to take a little bit more time, right? So I spent 4 years in the military, 7 in total, including my time in the National Guard, and 7 years in total before graduating college, and then before going to law school, then, in my current program. And I consider that, but the way I just try to rationalize it is, I'm a little bit more behind in the context of like still being in school, but I am doing this free of debt. All of my, college is paid for, whatnot. So just time and a little bit of friendships is the things I've had to, lose along the way.
Okay. So it sounds to me like if you could rewrite this part of this story, would the military still be included in it?
Absolutely. Absolutely. The good, the bad, the ugly, I guess, and, and any other things that you would like to, include into, that idea is, I think I am who I am, because of my time in the military, and I would certainly do it over,
All right. So now an even more important question is, would you recommend it to others? Let's just say young black men, young black women that are kind of at the age you were, 17, 18. Is the military something that you would recommend as a viable career option?
Absolutely. Definitely. I would. And I would give them some very important, I guess, advice in the context of like prior to going and in the military, things that they should do or should not do. But I would definitely recommend it. One of the biggest things that I would recommend is just having a backbone, standing up for yourself, and learning how to be articulate and communicate the things that concern you the most. if there's anything that concerns you. So having a backbone will certainly take you a long way. You'll be respected when you stand on principles and morals, and you don't, what we call the military is being a yes man, is saying yes to people. Essentially, what that means is just creating healthy boundaries, right? Just as a person, just being able to say no and knowing like your level of appropriate, like things that, how do I say this? Just things that are appropriate in which you can handle. Don't agree to or take on anything more than what you can handle. I would also say to be inquisitive. Be very, very curious. Be open-minded. Be open to possibilities, opportunities. We just recently learned about this in my graduate class, which applied to my time in the military, like 7 years ago also, is when the opportunities are presented to you, just be open to accept them. You don't necessarily have to accept everyone, but be open to those opportunities. I have a brother who joined the military about 2 years after I joined. I encouraged him to join. Right now, he is extremely decorated. He's gone to several different schools and is making the most of his opportunity there. So I'm very proud of him, but I'm using him as an example for other people that may be listening to just simply take advantage of the opportunities that are presented to you.
Okay, that's tremendous advice.
Yep.
Tremendous advice that somebody somewhere will benefit from.
Definitely.
So after the military, so you do your time. So how long are you in the military?
So I was in for a total of 7 years. I done 4 years active duty and 3 years National Guard.
All right, so
in North Carolina National Guard.
All right, so was it just time for you to get out, or did circumstances occur where you had to? What's the story behind you exiting the military?
Yeah, so I think I shared early on that at the age of like 16 or 17, man, I really was thinking long term, right, about preparing for my family and whatnot. And this was prior to my time in the military. But I knew I wanted to have a family, Brian. I knew I wanted to have a family. And I knew that I did not want to be away from my family for long periods at a time, right? I knew I didn't want to deploy. I don't want to be away from my family for 9 months, 10 months if you include NTC, the National Training Center, where you go to train before deployment. So considering the time in which I wanted to be near my family, and considering what I mentioned also about not being able to reach my full potential in the context of my educational, desires, I couldn't complete a bachelor's in what I was pursuing, engineering at the time, civil engineering. I couldn't do that online. And that was the only option that I had, being active duty. So also considering the desire for me to have a family and recognizing that I could not continue or pursue my intended career field in active duty caused me to get out of the military and pursue my education as I wanted to without any restrictions, free restrictions. As I mentioned, the military will pay for them in active duty, but you won't be able to have the time to do that because of the obligations that you have. So,
okay, so a fortuitous event. So, in other words, you left because you were looking for more opportunity. You saw further, and now you were trying to go further.
Absolutely. The longer you stay in the military, the more reliant you become on it. So that's very critical to understand. If you want to make a career out of it and do at least 20 years, it's important to align yourself with what you have to do to be able to do 20 years. And then if you want to get out, it's important to align yourself with things in which aligns with your exit also. And so that's just simply what I done, considering my desire to go to college and graduate college and a career field in which I wanted to pursue it in.
All right. So we're out of the military at this point, mm-hmm. And then after the military is when you go to A&T, correct?
Yes.
All right. So what were so you figure because you retired from the military, correct?
Yes. So I done 4 years active duty, 3 years National Guard, and I retired in 2020. Man, 2020. So it was about 4 years ago.
All right. So given that you retired, I would imagine you walked away from the military with a set income. A pension, if you will. You walked away from the military with a set income.
Yes.
So with that being the case, I mean, you were straight. How old were you when you retired, if you don't mind me asking?
Oh, you're fine. So I'm 28. I think I was 25. So I was 24 or 25 when I retired.
So you're 24, 25. You have a set income. Why would you want to go to college after you're 25 years old with a income? What made you want to go to college after that?
Because our brothers need help. My sisters need help. You know, I have a best friend right now who is doing extensive time. I have a few best friends right now in prison, federal prison, state prison, doing time. My biological father done time, right, in prison. I don't have a relationship with him. I don't really know him. My biological brother done time in prison. So I named my brother, my dad, two of my friends, many others. You know, it goes into my personal statement for law school, Brian. You know, at some point you're gonna stop, right? You're gonna pause and you're gonna look around and examine your circumstance. You're gonna say, well, why are so many people that look like me in prison, right? Like the way I framed it in my law school personal statement was, it sounded like prison seems like an extension of my community, right? Like, why is it the standard? Why is that the expectation that we're gonna go to prison? Yeah, you know, my dad just got out, and you know, I don't care. I'll do my time. I'll do my 3 years. Like, there's something wrong. There's something wrong with things need to shift, right? There needs to be a shift in our community, and change should happen. So I just felt led to pursue a career in helping my brothers and sisters recognize their potential. It's not for me to allow life to pass me by and not use the gifts and the passion that I have to help others. You know, and A&T, there's a very big tower in the center of campus, and essentially it says pay it forward. And that's all I'm trying to do in the context of the work that I do, is paying it forward, you know, mentoring and helping youth, particularly at-risk youth. So that's why I went. So that's why I went to A&T, and law school, and in the current program that I'm in. You know, life is much more than that. Life is much more than, I don't know, it's more meaning outside of the context of myself. It's about us as a people, you know, us as a community. So, you know, I pursued this path to be able to hopefully help.
So the thing is, you may not realize it, but in your pursuit, no matter when you get there, it's your pursuit that's already helping.
Absolutely. Yep.
Just for somewhere around the world, for a person, black, white, other, to see you, but in particularly black, to see you and say, yeah, that is, a psychologist is a real possibility. Mm-hmm. This brother's doing it.
Right.
So I don't know if you've ever thought about it in that context, but you're definitely already helping.
Right. Absolutely.
So talk about law school. Talk about your law school experience and talk about your law school experience.
Okay, yes. Yeah, so I completed one term at Elon Law School, and it was 2021, and it was August to December. And I was, you know, immediately following my acceptance to law school, I actually applied. There's a fellowship program at Elon Law where you could become one of three. At the time, I think it was one of three fellows. Like, there was a business fellow, there was a leadership fellow, I think there was like a small business fellow or something of that nature. I applied to be a leadership fellow, you know, just based on the leadership experience I had, and I was accepted as a leadership fellow. And so a part of the the responsibilities that we done was we worked collectively with other people that was also nominated as or selected as leadership fellows to go out and I guess try to better the law school in the context of like working with each other to create ideas that can help further other students, if that makes sense. And law school was very very busy. You certainly had a lot to do. I started off with, you're going to learn this very early on. We used a framework called IRAC.
Yeah.
Yep. So we use a framework called IRAC. You're going to learn very, very, very immediately how to think critically. You're going to learn how to analyze cases, and you're going to have to draw conclusions based on those cases as well. What can I say? What else can I say? It was long nights, man. Very, very long nights. I sat here at my kitchen table doing a lot of work, like every night out the week. And you're always gonna feel busy, even in your free time.
There's no free time. You don't have free time. Like they call it spring break. They call it only real free time is summer. Your summers are yours, but that's if you're not like I'm gonna take a summer class.
I was just about to say that. Yeah. So the way Elon Law works, I didn't stay long enough for the summer, but their curriculum requires you to complete like practical work, and I believe it's in summer 1. So I believe it's in the first summer where it requires you to complete work. So you're constantly busy, and it's like even when you should be resting, you feel guilty, and you feel like there's always something that can be done.
That's funny. I forgot about that. Yeah, your summers are not yours because you got an intern.
Yes. Yeah,
I forgot all about I don't know how it matters to forget all about that. Yeah, no, I guess because it's blended in with me going to law school and me working, so it just blended in. But your summers aren't yours. Nah, it is intense. I remember when I first got accepted, so this would have been, 2 summers ago? Mm-hmm. I remember I'm at the accepted students picnic or barbecue.
Yeah.
And I keep telling the admissions lady, I'm like, yeah, just thank you so much. Thank you. Yeah. And she said, nah, you keep saying thank you and all of that. She said, but I'm just curious. Just wait until you up 3 o'clock in the morning reading cases and see if you still saying thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, and right off the bat, you up at 3 o'clock in the morning, reading cases.
Yep, and a really big thing, I guess the way I can explain it for those that may be interested in law school, is I can explain it like this: you can take, let's roughly say a case of 5 or 6 pages. We'll give you a short case. You're gonna spend for every page, you're gonna spend 2 to 3 times. It'll be more than that, but I'll just say it's gonna take you a few hours just to be able to read that case and to be able to understand or interpret what exactly is happening and all that is happening in a comprehensive way. That was something that was echoed among me and other law school students, is just the amount of time it takes to fully understand these cases. And then hot calls, man. Not hot. I said hot call. Cold calls. Cold calls, man. I used to, and this also goes into, the perception that everybody is smart and I can't go to law school because, hey, listen, I'm here to share with you just like Brian is here to share with you. It's challenging for everyone. I remember very vividly, I will never forget, I was like the second to last row in my law schools in my Civ Pro class, my civil procedure class, and we had assigned seats. So the teacher assigned me back there, and I remember she called a gentleman that was to my front left. I guess around my 11 o'clock. Everyone was a little bit nervous. We didn't want to be cold called. It was extremely, it was one of the more complicated cases that we had. And I remember that gentleman, and mind you, I'm thinking that it's just exclusive to me. Maybe it's just me like having a hard time understanding the complexity of this case. And I remember him getting very frustrated. He just said, ah. And then the teacher,
Oh, yeah?
Yep. And my professor said, it's okay. I'll just give you some time. And she didn't allow, the way she taught it, she didn't go to anyone else. She just gave him time and allow him to respond. But the reason why I'm saying that is to explain that it is a challenging experience for all of us. It is not unique to you. It is not unique to anyone else. We're all in the same boat together. And that's essentially cold calls. So, and always be prepared, man. Always be prepared. I remember I'd respond for another student who didn't know that he needed to do in my torch class. That was my CF Pro class. In my torch class, we were assigned cases, and he didn't know that it was his day, and I had done all the cases for him. I didn't do them. Let me explain it correctly. I didn't do them for him, but I had done the work myself, and he didn't do them, right? And so he didn't respond, and he explained to the teacher he didn't know, and I said I did the cases, but no one else in the class did the case because it wasn't their day, right? So why am I saying that? And the professor, I forgot his name, but that was a day that I really distinguished myself, man. And I guess I could say that's one of my more prouder days, bro. And I still think about it to this day, and it's been since 2021. And that is being able to respond to that, being able to do the outline of that case, and then those cases and respond to that case, even when that gentleman had forgot. So always be prepared, even if it's not your day and you have assigned days.
Yeah, I will say cold calling is my least favorite part of law school. I don't enjoy it.
Yeah.
I don't enjoy it. But like you said with the military, it's like part of the game. It's a part of the game.
Yeah.
And if you want to survive the game, you got to do stuff. But yeah, so you sound like you were a pretty astute law student. What cut law school short for you?
Yeah, so I became a single dad. That's the biggest one, man. I had a daughter, and I knew that I needed to, given my circumstances and stuff with law school and how demanding law school was, I knew that I couldn't be a law school student. Well, let me rephrase it. I could do anything, but I could have excelled in law school despite, being a single dad. But I wanted to be able to just have that time to not even risk it, Brian. Like I wanted to be able to devote as much time and effort that I could to law school because I knew that I would need it. So once I became a single dad, I knew that I wanted to take a break, take a pause, and then to resume law school in the following year once I had established the relationship that I needed and the skills that I needed to be a single dad. And in that, I guess this is just adding on to the question. It was actually in that 1 year sabbatical, that I had worked 2 jobs in particular that made me want to go and become a school psychologist. I worked as a juvenile detention officer where in the Gifford County Juvenile JDC, where I worked with juveniles in the ages of 17 and under who were incarcerated. I worked there for about 7 months. And then I worked there for about 3 to 4 months. Prior to then, I worked inside of a school as a behavioral specialist or like a social emotional learning coach. And I learned a lot about student behavior. I counseled a lot of students, just working with them, helping them work through things with the experience and the knowledge that I had without having the training as a school psychologist. And it was then, I knew that I could help students develop the skills that they needed to succeed. The most important of which is literacy skills.
So that's interesting. The reason I say it's interesting is because according to the American Psychological Association in 2020, there were roughly 106,500 licensed psychologists in the United States.
Mm-hmm.
But according to the Government Accountability Office, only 4% of those were black. So I guess my question is, what made you think you could be a psychologist?
Yep.
Have you ever even met a black psychologist in your life?
No, sir, I haven't.
So whatever made you think that you could be a psychologist?
Yeah, so I'm going to copy that question, Brian, right? So I'm going to copy it, I'm going to tweak it a little bit. You know, the question I asked myself is, why can't I be? Right? So I knew I wanted to be a psychologist, but a school psychologist, but, you know, I've never met one, never seen, never spoke to, you know, a black psychologist, let alone a school psychologist. But I just, you know, figured, why can't I do it? You know, for some time, I considered being a school counselor, but I done a little bit more research on school psychologists, and I learned exactly what they do and how they work in a very comprehensive manner to help, I guess, address the needs of students. And so that's when I made the decision to do it, to apply. And I was allowed in. And so now I'm finishing up my first year. But it was just having the courage to do it. Like I said, I didn't see anyone or know anyone, but, you know, I just figured, why not?
So, which is great, by the way. And I would imagine, I'm wondering if the kind of the confidence and the courage that you had to embark on something that you, I mean, I guess everybody knows that there got to be a handful of black psychologists somewhere. So, but in that's almost that taking a step without being able to see the rest of the staircase.
Yep.
That kind of thing is what I'm getting.
Yep, absolutely. And also, you know, along with law school, how I mentioned how we all shared the same struggles. We all shared the same experiences. I thought about the same context for, you know, going to school to become a psychologist. I knew that it was likely that we would all share the same experiences. And then I knew that one really big thing I'll mention about this is I spoke to a professor. He was a black male, and I spoke to him. I don't remember where it was. I don't remember who it was. I wish I could, but he explained this to me. He said, black males are number one and have been number one for some time in dropout rates for college. So the number one person or I guess respective group that drops out of college is black males. And he said, Patrick, do you know why that is? Why do you think that is? And I gave him a few ideas that I thought it was. And he told me this. He said, listen, and I'll never forget it, man. This was during my sabbatical. He said, the number one most contributing factor to black men dropping out of college is that they're unwilling to ask for help.
Wow, man.
Listen to me, man. Like, they're unwilling to ask for help. He said, all the other groups are willing to ask for help, but black men do not. And then we got into context, Brian, about speaking about our culture, right? Our community, and how where we very rarely reach for help. Listen, man, I had it on my board, bro. Because I have a big board on my wall that I write things on, like a fork. It's a calendar, essentially, like a dry erase board. I put this on there before I started here at App State, man. I said, ask for help. Ask for help. We need to be asking each other for help, man. Find your resources. And I will argue to say it goes down to pride. It goes down to pride as black men. People in general, but I'm speaking really on the context of the individuals or the group that drops out the most, which is, black males or black boys. We got to ask for help. We have to learn to overcome pride, bro, and ask for help. And so that's what I done. I wrote it on my board. I'm sure it's on my board somewhere, but we got to be sure to ask for help. This gentleman, he had who told me he had connection with UNC, so the University of Chapel Hill. I don't remember who he was or where this conversation even happened, but he shared it with me and it stuck with me. So I'm really glad we're having this conversation. I actually didn't write that down, but you've got to ask for help, especially in the context. Listen, as you climb the ladder, as you climb the economic ladder, as you climb the ladder of education, as you climb the ladder of success, right, in life in general, it's going to become fewer and fewer and fewer. And the purpose of this podcast is to have is to increase the number of minorities, is to increase, just our spaces, the number of us in these types of spaces. But it's important to ask for help and to reach out to people, to just simply be resourceful, which is also another one that I had. Is to be resourceful and be sure to ask for help.
So that actually, you got me, Jules, you dropping, got me skipping around in my question. So
what you think, man?
My next question was, what you just said, the professor said to you, aligns with my next question is, so like, first and foremost, like, I try to do a lot, and I do it because just kind of keeps my mind active and it keeps me going. So plus I kind of got dreams and stuff. So I try to do a lot of stuff, but sometimes doing a lot of stuff gets a little heavy. So I go see a mental health therapist to kind of, I guess, decompress, or at least not get stuff off my mind, but sort it out.
Right.
And I don't do it because I think I'm crazy. I do it to keep from going crazy.
Right.
There seems to be a huge stigma with Black people and mental health. Like friends I talk to, like friends and people I know about going to therapy, and they like, man, you bugging. I'm not going to sit there and tell somebody I'm not sitting there telling somebody all my business. So in our apprehension to go seek help with our mental health, do you think that is also a part of what the professor said in terms of we just don't like asking for help?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I guess I would like to start my response to this question by saying I've received counseling as well, right? So I think that's a beautiful thing, that as for individuals that may be listening, Brian is a Black gentleman, I'm a Black gentleman. We both have went to go seek mental health support and counseling. So hopefully that can encourage you if you ever think you may need it, or if you could benefit from it as well. But certainly, I think he was, that professor in particular was speaking about the context of many things. There was many things in what he had mentioned that I took some time to try to unpack. There's certainly some apprehension in mental health services among the minority community or Black community, and I think that's a shift. I think we can certainly work to change that, and I think it starts with us just being transparent about our experience. Man, I'm learning that right now. In one of my courses, which is called Developmental Psychopathology, and and that course is simply about symptoms and diagnosis, in which typically start in a younger age. So working with students in general, and which leads into adulthood. But there's certainly apprehension to get services, which we can change, but it starts with just simply being transparent about your dealing with, about the things you're experiencing dealing with, and having the courage to go get help. And I think once we learn how to do that, I think it will lead to other things in which we could have success from as well. But you just have to simply have the courage to go and seek help.
And seek the help. Do you think that, so I read an article, I mean, I just read stuff all the time, but I read an article that reported that Black people are more comfortable with and are more likely to go see other Black doctors. Do you think that same thing holds true for psychologists? Do you think that if there were more Black psychologists, Black people would be more willing to go see them?
Absolutely. It starts with just identifying, being able to identify with people in general. I think that's why it's important to have people of color in these types of spaces. Representation matters, right? So if, just hypothetically, if there's a student of color, a young black boy, I used to have dreads. Before I went to the military, I used to have dreads. There's a young black boy with dreads, or a young girl, right? Or, any student, and they're reluctant to get help. If they see me as being a mental health professional, they may be more likely to receive help, or being able, or more likely to feel comfortable even expressing themselves. Just simply knowing that I'm here to support them. And most importantly is I can identify with their experiences in a culturally sensitive way. They know who is it? It was I think it was a actor just recently mentioned, like, just about, waking up on a Sunday morning, right? And hearing the music and cleaning up, about, Kool-Aid and fried chicken, just things that are that we hold within our and practices that we hold within our culture. Like, I can identify with them, and that can make students more comfortable, or just children in general, to feel more comfortable getting help when they're able to see and identify and find similarities with these professionals in these spaces.
So it would make you, in other words, it will make you more relatable.
Yeah, definitely.
Okay. So what impact do you think having so few black psychologists has on society?
Well, one of the biggest is just a reluctance to get help. As a people, especially for our youth, it helps them. It helps them to be able to identify with practitioners and people within various fields that are designed to help them. So without more diversity, students will typically be more reluctant to get help. And if they do receive help, they may be reluctant to disclose all of the things in which, if they did share, as opposed to if they did share, it will help them more. So just a little bit of withdrawal and reluctance to get help. And I think that's one of the biggest things that we should work on, that we should help to develop within our students, just a climate of connectivity and just compassion, I guess, to help students feel more comfortable with going to get help. I just had a Zoom for my class where we spoke to a professional school psychologist within our state. And, minority students in general, particularly black boys, suicides are on the rise for black boys across the nation, like disproportionately. So it is critical that in schools currently we have, educators, teachers, just staff in general that, can identify with the unique experiences that they have, to hopefully allow them to feel more comfortable to get help. Yeah.
Okay. All right. So so kind of circling all the way back to the beginning. So we definitely need more. The need for black psychologists it's a pressing need. It's okay.
Definitely.
All right. So and with that, I definitely appreciate. So when I first heard about your kind of shifting into a psychology program, I was equally, if not more equally happy than when I heard you were going to law school. Yeah, because obviously with roughly 4.6% of all lawyers being black, that's someplace where we need it too.
Definitely.
So ultimately, what are your ultimate plans or goals in working in psychology in the capacity that you will be?
Okay, I guess I'll loop back just a second and say, like, just educators in general, Brian, in schools will help. Whether you're a psychologist, you're a counselor, you're a teacher, you're a principal, school staff just in general can certainly help with combating or like improving student mental health. And also, I want to share this as well because this is what we're learning also in my program. Janitors, okay? So what research says is that oftentimes students feel more comfortable. Mind you, schools are universal. So it's in every like state and every county when our schools are. And so what we're finding is that oftentimes students feel more comfortable going to school-based like professionals or employees, like going to them that are not instructional. And so what that means is that like if you're not a teacher, if you're not a school psychologist, if you're not a principal, like it helps in the context of like students coming to you for advice or just to confide in with the issues that they're facing. We're finding like students are going more to individuals that may be like a school nurse or the school janitor and employees like that. Like I say, we're finding that students are feeling more comfortable to go to. In the context of like longevity for my career, ultimately, I think I'm gonna start a nonprofit organization. I've had this goal for some time. I actually have a name for it. I think I may call it like Boys to Men, where we teach youth, particularly like at-risk youth, skills they need to succeed and be a man. What I've experienced consistently, or I've witnessed consistently, is my friends that are in prison or my friends that have a number of adverse experiences, both in school, that happened in school and post school, is that they lack like skills to like write resumes. It's hard to get a job if you can't write a resume. It's hard to get a job if you don't know how to tie a tie. It's hard to get a job if you don't understand or know basic social skills or things of that nature. So, along with my career as a school psychologist, I'm hoping for one to, potentially establish a nonprofit organization that's aimed at mentoring youth and to help teach them, important skills that they need. And also as a school psychologist, I'm considering also doing that within the schools as well, where I will start an after-school curriculum or after-school program where it will range from about 30 minutes to an hour, probably once a week. And I would teach them, teach these young men like particular skills that they need as well, like in addition to my nonprofit outside of the school. And I would teach them all of the things that I've mentioned before, and also essentially like a tutoring type service where they needed help, like literacy skills, like reading, things of that nature. It's very important to mention this also. Like we're building, like as a nation, we build prisons based on third grade reading levels. So it's very important. This is one of the things that we're still, that's very drilled in us, as training school psychologists, and that is, if a child is not reading by grade 3, by third grade, it's going to be very difficult for them to catch, how do I say this? It's going to be very difficult for that student to be able to get on curriculum and to be able to be average, I guess, like in the context of like how well they perform with other students. So it's very important that we provide interventions and help students learn how to read starting in elementary school prior to third grade. They should understand like very basic reading skills, if that makes sense. And so that's it. I hope to establish a nonprofit organization aimed at mentoring youth. And then I hope to be able to do that as well within the school district where I work, hopefully.
So that is great. And I don't think that any one person, any one group will come and save the day for us as Black people. I think it's a concerted effort of all different thoughts, all different backgrounds, all different ideologies, and it'll be the culmination of that that kind of restores us to where we were. So I just want to tell you that,
Definitely.
I got a handful of years on you, but I just want to tell you that I am extremely happy for you. I'm extremely proud of you. I'm grateful for the ability to sit courtside and watch you work and do your thing. And if there's anything, whatever it might be, if there's anything I could do to help, by all means, like I said, man, I'm definitely in your corner.
Definitely. Same.
I did want to ask you, so basically what I'm doing is, because like I said, I don't think that one thing I see or notice with podcasts or even the internet in general is that confrontation seems to sell.
Okay.
The beef seems to sell. Okay. So I actually think that that's one of our problems, not just as black people, but one of our problems as a society. Is that we thrive on beef. I watch a lot of, I watch YouTube, and it'll be like, this person crushes this person. Yeah. This person destroys it. And I'm like, why are you crushing or why are you destroying when we could take our energy collectively and we could build?
Right.
So what I'm actually doing with and what I do and have been doing with all guests is I got a black people suggestion box, okay, if you will.
Okay.
So to any black people as a whole, to our children, to our students, drop something for black people in the suggestion box.
Okay. Yeah, so the biggest thing, man, before law school, before this program, honestly, really before, even going to A&T, a really big thing that I would encourage our community to start doing is being a little bit more selfless. And this is what I mean by that. Oftentimes, we care nothing about anything outside of our immediate family. Well, that ain't my kid, that ain't my daughter, that ain't my son, that ain't my problem, and they go about their day. Listen, if we had a collective desire, it starts with a desire, one. You have to want better for our people. Once you have the desire for us to do better as a people, then leads me to my point is just having the initiative and developing the initiative to direct youth in need, in particular, that are in need of direction. Okay? So that's what I would provide as a suggestion, or I'll provide as like I would encourage my people to do. One thing that I've always done is if a young man needed advice, if he needed help, I've always made myself available to be able to ask me questions. Okay, you and I we're two college educated men. We know about FAFSA. We understand the application process of college, of undergraduate. We understand the application process of law school. We have the experience of law school. Okay, you and I were very mature as a people. If we can collectively share the resources that we have and the knowledge that we have and help direct youth in need, despite it not being our immediate, quote unquote, immediate responsibility, I think we can go far in life. I think the potential is unlimited. But first, just as you mentioned, we have to do away with the division. We have to do away with the competition. We have to see one. We have to see one and make it your responsibility. Make it an imperative for you to guide an adolescence, a youth that was simply in need. And the understanding may be uncomfortable, but it's extremely important because you could change that man's life. You could change that young girl's life. Like, and so that's all I just want to provide as a suggestion and encouragement. It's just simply like, and here it is, man. Like, here, look, like, I'm retired, man. I'm retired. I don't have to do this. I didn't have to go to college, didn't have to go to law school, I had to be a psychologist, but it's bigger than us. It's about a people. It's about helping the next person. Like many people, many people believe that people go to jail and people become incarcerated because they're bad people, right? They do bad things. And although that could be the truth for some context, a lot of these kids, like, it's by design. Now, I can elaborate very big on this, but it is a system that is after us to destroy us. The conspiracy of the conspiracy to destroy black boys, right? So it's been around for a while. And as Brian mentioned, no one's coming to save us but us, okay? And to do that, we must see beyond the division, beyond the things that are designed to divide us, and to see one. So I just want to encourage you to do that.
Powerful. Very powerful. First of all, like I said, man, good to see you. Good to see you doing the work you're doing. Good to see you thinking how you thinking, talking how you talking. Sure. Yeah, just in general, good to see you. And thank you for being a shining example for society. Thank you for believing in yourself, even when the rest of the world might not. And definitely thank you for not believing the negative stereotypes and narratives that we're given.
Definitely.
But as I mentioned to you, there is something that I did want to share with you and with the rest of the viewers. In terms of individuals of the past, present, and future that chose not to believe those negative images or stereotypes. You see the gentleman pictured on the screen? Yep. Name is Dr. Francis Cecil Sumner. So Dr. Sumner is often referred to as the father of black psychology. So he was the first black, and so he's referred to as that because he's the first black person in the United States to receive a PhD in psychology. Now, this is in the 1920s. So that's really significant because it's not too far off from the abolition of slavery. But Dr. Sumner himself, his work was focused on the understanding the psychology of racial bias and supporting educational justice. So this is a gentleman that you figure 1920s, Black America, he wasn't getting any support. So he managed to publish several articles, psychoanalysis articles, despite research agencies' refusal to sponsor any of his work simply because he was black. So this gentleman that we see before us, he's actually credited with having founded the psychology department at Howard University, which is another prestigious HBCU. So he co-founded the psychology department, and he sat as the chairman of it from 1928 to 1954. So fresh off the heels of slavery, this is a gentleman, Dr. Francis Cecil Sumner, is a gentleman who chose not to believe those negative stereotypes or images, but he chose to succeed in spite of them. So shout out to Dr. Francis Cecil Sumner. And shout out to you for the work that you're doing and the visual image that you offer as a black man in America moving in a positive direction, again, despite the negative imagery and stereotypes that are propagated.
Yeah. What we're finding is that students' outcomes are significantly better if they have a positive role model or positive adult in their life. And it doesn't have to be many. It could just be one positive role model, which potentially could hold them accountable, in which they look forward to see and answer to, essentially, that can impact their outcomes, such as like academic, behavioral, and outcomes such as that.
Yeah, and the role model thing is really important because I can only speak for myself. Like I did not grow up in a single parent household at all. My parents have been married for probably 55 years. So for me, even though, you do stuff when you're a kid, you do stupid stuff, I always kind of walked it back a little when I would do stupid stuff, just because I didn't want to disappoint my parents. Even to this day, like, I find it hard to curse around my parents. Yeah, I just don't want to disappoint them. And the fear of disappointing my parents or letting them down in any way probably kept me safe, kept me out of trouble, and it kept me safe. And I think sometimes what's missing is sometimes kids don't have anybody to disappoint.
Right.
And things could get dangerous when a child doesn't have anyone to disappoint.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And that's essentially what I was mentioning, is just having one positive role model. It doesn't have to be many. Just one positive role model, particularly in schools, which can help influence the outcomes of students or at-risk students in need.
Yeah, and I think that's another hope, or another hope for the show, is that even if a kid or a youth doesn't have a role model, hopefully through this platform or program, hopefully they could connect with one through the various people that we speak with.
Definitely.
So that's a very interesting and valid and, in my opinion, 100% true point, is that one positive role model has the ability to change the trajectory of a person's life forever.
Yep. Always.
But thank you again for your time, your insight, your energy, and all your hard work. And we look forward to seeing you again down the road.
Sounds good.
Peace.
Thanks for listening to the We Don't Believe You podcast with your host, Brian McCoy. We hope you feel enlightened and empowered by our show. Please visit our YouTube channel at We Don't Believe You and our socials at We Don't Believe You on Facebook and Nah Don't Believe You on Twitter X. Please subscribe and share our podcast. Peace.